I'm dying to ask you before we get started, how does one decide to be a primatologist?
I have no idea.
I mean, how old were you when you first said, I want to be a primatologist when I grow up?
I think quite old,
Yeah?
actually. I think I was young when I decided that animals were wonderful and that understanding human nature was made easier if we were willing to understand animal nature. Because at the end of the day, you know, you're an animal, and I'm an animal, and everybody's an animal, and that's a wonderful thing. So I think that was early in terms of bonding and examining animal nature. Primatology came later when, you know, you start really delving into human evolution and the intersection of that and philosophy. And also when you get the itch of exploration, because it's a great excuse to go into faraway lands. Yes. What about you as an actress?
I think I was born an actress.
Huh?
I think I just came in with it. You know, by the time I was 7, I was writing my Academy Award acceptance speech.
Great.
Yeah. I can't explain it.
Yeah.
It was just something I could do.
See, that's so funny, because in a way we both do play in different ways. I study play behavior, and of course, you know, she plays. And in play, we see what we will do, right? That you at 7 were writing it. And just before we were talking about our earliest memories, and you asked me, and I said, I don't know what my earliest memories is, but I do remember being at home and walking up the hill with 2 dogs, but the size relationship was this. So I was that little, and that was play. And there was like, you know, you're invincible. You're like with 2 fantastic animals.
Then you went to the Congo, and what did you learn about the bonobos? How are they different from chimpanzees and other apes?
So it's kind of particular. I just have to say that it's very moving to talk about it tonight. And I feel very humbled, and I find it difficult because of the contrast. So Tim said, everything changes. And gosh, it does. And so I work in evolution, and evolution is about change. But some things change more than others. And what I saw in Congo, I thought it was almost a ridiculous contrast. Because my task as an evolutionary biologist is to understand better human nature and the roots of human nature. You know, we were asking, where does wisdom come from? That well within is really looking at deep time. And deep time is a deep well. So you really...
What's deep time?
Deep time, so deep history.
Okay.
Time, that geological time. So I think, you know, now we're appalled at 4 years, but I think in terms of 40 million years and 4 billion years. So if anything, you know, you know, it puts things in context. It's good.
Well, that's a relief.
Exactly. It's like, you know, and the sun is going to die and all of that, and it's going to be even more orange. So, so yeah, and a lot matter. But sorry, I'm not answering the question. Congo. Congo is, of course, the literary heart of darkness. And
what does that mean, the heart of darkness?
So Joseph Conrad wrote a book called The Heart of Darkness, in which he depicted the horrors that DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, ex-Zaire, had undergone at the end of the 19th century and beginning of the 20th century. When I went there and I read more of the history, I realized it was not literature at all. Congo has a karma, if I may use that word, that is horrible. It is literally the heart of darkness. The level of human atrocities that have happened in this country and that continue to happen today, if we think about women, Congo today is the rape capital of the world. Mm-hmm. There are hundreds of women being raped every hour. And suddenly I was like a lone female tasked with the mission of going and searching for a hidden society that is the most peaceful, friendly, playful, that is a matriarchal society, and that is basically that many of the secrets of, human light are there, because it's what runs in our family that can lead to these expressions, right? And I'm like, why don't they live in the Caribbean? No, it has to be in Congo. There's kind of a literary irony there. So bonobos are very different from chimpanzees. Bonobos and chimpanzees are great apes. We are great apes. So our closest ancestors are all dead. So if you think of Neanderthals and Homo erectus, these are all of the human family, they're all extinct. So we cannot study them. You cannot study laughter in bones. You can only study your cousins, right? So what we do as evolutionary biologists is that we try to see who is alive and then see what similarities, what runs deep in the family. Imagine all your family is dead and your grandparents are dead and you have 2 cousins. So you really like to see your cousins to see, oh, maybe I can recognize that trait and that trait. And if something is common, you think maybe that runs in the family. So there are many things that are common. We are bonded animals. We cannot exist alone. We cannot understand, no man is an island. We cannot even begin to think of ourselves in the sense of isolation. But there are important differences. So chimpanzees, don't make any parallels here, are patriarchal, aggressive. They commit infanticide. They beat females up. They use tools even to beat females up. They are xenophobic. They do not like males of other groups. If they find males of other groups, there can be inter-community lethal aggression. They are exquisite politicians. They are Machiavellic manipulators. They have very strong hierarchies. Females one of the ways they exert power is because females are not together. So females are separated, therefore they cannot defend themselves. Bonobos, on the other hand, are actually very similar. Very difficult to tell them apart. But they did an extraordinary innovation, which is females hang together. First, there is proximity. First, you just need to be at close proximity together. And by being together, then they started forming bonds. When females form bonds, they go, what? Infanticide? What? No, we're not doing this. Here, no. And they were able to basically flip these animals have culture, the cultural traditions. So bonobos do not have infanticide or lethal aggression. They have solved a problem that we have not solved and that chimpanzees have not solved, which is a simple problem, to live without the fear of being killed by a member of your own species. So anyway, that's why I went to Congo.
I'm so glad I asked that question. Yes. I was in Stockholm last year. I was given a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Stockholm Film Festival. At my age, I get a lot of Lifetime Achievement Awards. And I only accept the ones that are in countries I've never been to. So this was Scandinavia. I'd never been there, so I went. And first I met the heads of the festival were 2 women, which is a little unusual. Usually heads of festivals are men, not always, but usually. And then at the opening ceremony, they introduced the Minister of Culture, and it was a woman. So I said to them later, gee, there's a lot of women in position of power here, how come? She said, well, we've had gender equality for 2 generations. I said, how's that working out? She said, oh, very well. We have an evenly balanced government, male and female. And I said, and that works for you? And she said, yes. I said, why? And she said, well, we've discovered that women work for consensus and men work to win. Now that's just about what you just said, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's consistent from,
Yes.
yeah.
It's super consistent, and it's a principle that we are beginning to extract the basis for why that is. And there's a very practical reason for why that is. And it's very important for us to understand why, because then you can extract it to male, female, and everything else. Because it's not, of course, we are not the sole owners of it. But in evolution, when you have a gender that has a particular interest, they work for that interest. So think of a female mammal. If you have kids, first of all, you're a mammal, it takes time, it takes energy, pregnancy is lengthy, lactation is expensive. To have your kids killed is a really bad thing. It's a very strong cost. So for any female mammal, whether it's a deer, a gorilla, or a human being, infanticide is just about the worst thing that can happen. And if you want to be really cold about it, not even, of course, we're not even talking emotionally, right? So that means that when you have females, if you allow females to look after their own interest, they will prioritize strategies that minimize infanticide and that maximize relationships. Because if you think everything changes, we live in an uncertain world, tough. We cannot do anything about it. But given that we're also intrinsically social, what is the only security that you can give your infants and your community? A strong, resilient network. Because like a brain, or like any complex system, or like the internet, a network can be damaged in one part, but then it reassembles if it's resilient. In other words, complex, resilient social networks is the best insurance. So the female mammalian principle is that I will work to create networks. Because I don't know what will happen. Uncertainty is here to stay, tough. But that's why unconsciously females do that. And that's why unconsciously females work towards consensus, not to win. So it's important because then you can think, what's the principle behind that? I really think that it's a long-term view, kind of the female principle comes with a long-term inclination. And there is wisdom in long-term view.
And intention.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Intention.
Yeah. I suppose that comes to my question I wanted to ask you, what is wisdom to you? And whether you think there's a temporal component to it. Wisdom cannot be short-term, no? There needs to be a thought of what happens in the long term. Buying a good car is not wise. It might be a good idea. It might be intelligent, but not wise.
Yeah, it's a good question. What is wisdom? I'm not sure I know. I'm not sure I'm wise enough to know. But I do know that I have this mysterious voice inside me that when it speaks, I listen. And it's never steered me wrong. And it's a voice. It's not a thought. It's a direction. And it operates when I'm working. Creative. It's part of my creativity. And in life, when I'm making huge decisions, I mean, important decisions, and I don't know, and I'm not sure, and I'm about to go that way, but I'm not sure that's the right way, it very often will just say one sentence. I don't know what that is. I think that's a divine mystery.
And it has never steered you wrong?
No.
You're very lucky.
No, well, I have other voices that steer me
okay.
wrong.
Yes.
But that one, that's the knowing voice. And maybe that's what Tim was talking about when he said that wisdom comes from inside. I have no claim to it. I can't say that I earned it or invented it or deserve it. It just comes. I guess I deserve it or it wouldn't come, I assume. But it's a miracle to me. And it's part of the really great mystery that I live with. And it's not very often. I mean, maybe like 10 times in my life. It happens more often in creativity, where it'll just put a thought in my head.
Do you think wisdom requires creativity?
Does wisdom require creativity? It probably likes it.
Yeah, that's lovely.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know that people who are wise ever feel that they're wise. You know, I don't think it's something that you...
Almost by definition, no?
Yeah.
If you think you're wise, then...
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, anytime anybody compliments me in any way about something I said, I'm always shocked because I feel like there's so much to know and I know nothing. The size of the universe and the cosmos and the miracle of life, the miracle that we have opposable thumbs and can pick something up, and how that developed through evolution. And there's just so much to know that I'm always surprised that we ever come up with the right answer about anything. I went to the Museum of Natural History a couple of years ago, and they had this amazing show in the, I guess it's a planetarium. And they turned off the lights, and suddenly we were in outer space on the planet, but leaving the planet. And we moved. They do it in such a way that you actually feel like you're leaving the planet. And then you can see Earth, and you can see the moon, and then pretty soon you can see the whole solar system, and then you're further out, and you see the galaxy, and then you go further and further and further, and you're the part of the multi-galactic system, and it's so vast. And when it was over and they turned on the lights, the thought that went through my head was, our Bible is a limerick.
That's great.
It just seems such a local story compared to
That's beautiful.
the whole story. And then I later wrote a limerick. I wrote, there once was a planet called Earth. It had a terrible thirst to know how it got here, and if there's a God here, and what on earth came first.
That's beautiful.
So how about you?
That's wonderful.
Where are you with wisdom? You got any?
Well, I'm not at all poetic. Oh, like you are. That's wonderful. Huh. No, that's gorgeous because, of course, that's so playful. And that brings me to a question and a thought. We were talking about the relationship between creativity and wisdom. So when I see animals play, play is the foundation of creativity. Play combines and recombines and invents and experiments and is happy to make mistakes and rejoices in limericks and games, and is comfortable with uncertainty, right? Which is weird, but of course, because we hate uncertainty today, perhaps more than ever. And
no, today we hate certainty.
yes, you're quite right. Yes. Yes. I know. We thought we would have a different certainty. Yeah. Anyway, yes.
I'm sorry.
No. It's just suddenly brought it back, and I'm like, oh my God. But that's actually where I'm going with the question, because I see animals playing, and it's not that they're comfortable in uncertainty. They love it. In play, you don't just tolerate uncertainty, you enjoy it. The whole point of a game is that you don't know the result. The whole point of a joke is that please don't tell me the punchline, and so on. And so it seems like this weird magic niche where the rules are changed in a way where there's a safe space where we can really rejoice in uncertainty in a way that we do not have in most other human domains. And it's an immensely creative space. Like you, I think wisdom likes creativity. Of course, you can be creative without being wise. But if you're really going to come up with something new and balance things, short-term, long-term, my interest, your interest, community, there is creativity required. So my question is that I see that when animals become fearful and stressful, playfulness drops. And creativity drops. And we become focused. And we react quickly, but we react to safe spaces. And so the question that I always have in research is, how can we summon that freedom of thought in the times of greatest uncertainty? Because these are the times where you need it most. But cognitive mood states dictate that I'm closed. And I need to be under a different state. And then, of course, there is one realm of humans that I can imagine that are able to do that. You know, you're an actor. You must have experienced all these states where you are suddenly scared, you forget the lines, you go, what am I doing? And yet, you need to be able to summon that playful creativity. Where does that come from? How do you do it? or do you do it? I don't know.
Well, there's all different permutations of that. I mean, talking about a safe place reminds me of working with Marty Scorsese, who does a very interesting thing that I don't know any other director who does it. And that is when you walk onto the set, it becomes a safe place. He sort of circles around the edge of it, and you feel his like protection of this space. So the actors are going into the center of it, and it's almost like a boxing ring, you know, and like now we're going to work out, and now and we start playing with each other and finding the rhythm and finding the connections, and you know, and it's he does it physically. He sort of walks around the perimeter of the set, and you feel that he's defined an arena. So I think that's a very interesting idea that you just said of the safe place. Yeah, I don't know if there's so much play happening outside of a safe place.
Yes, exactly. It seems very clear to me after watching all sorts of animals, and by that I always mean humans as well, that play happens when you have the sense of at least a relative safe space. That's why taking risk is fun. Otherwise taking risk is a stupid thing to do and very scary. So the obvious thing now is like, how the hell are we going to master that feeling? And obviously then I can only go back to, you know, I know how communities form in terms of animals, and what you're describing now is a fantastic example of forming community. It just only brings the thought that we will need to get very inventive in the sense of bottom-up community formation and safe spaces.
Yeah.
Because before wisdom, we need to think creatively.
I want to ask you a question. You're the only person I've ever met who's going to have an answer for something that I saw years ago.
Call Martin Scorsese immediately.
I witnessed a drama in the zoo that I didn't understand. And I've never known anyone who can explain it to me. Until
that might remain the same way. All
right, it's a New York zoo, and there are two monkeys in a cage, small monkeys, I don't know what kind, like this size. I think a male and a female. The female was a little smaller, a little, you know, more delicate. The male was a little rougher. The male obviously had been given a shot, a drug of some kind, and he was totally just dozy. The female had a little pile of chopped carrots in front of her, and she was eating them as fast as she could because she was worried that guy was going to try and get them from her. But he was not getting anything. He was just out of it. And after a while, she noticed that he wasn't trying to get the carrots. And she got sort of interested in that and wondered why. So she started going like this. And then it went further and further until finally she went over and opened his eye and tapped on it with a carrot. What is that?
Oh, after Oxford and Cambridge, I can tell you that only happens in New York.
But I mean...
No, that's very interesting. So she was tapping his
the
eye.
eyelids, so she knew that he sees with his eye, and she
Yes.
figured there was something wrong
Yes.
with it. Do you get this, Karen?
Yes. Were you able to observe her mouth? Did she look relaxed or did she look stressed? Or you don't remember? She was doing
She
that.
was always chewing carrots.
Yeah. Yes. That's very, this is fascinating. I've never observed anything.
I saw that in the subway once.
See? New York. There you go. I knew it. There is hope. There is still hope. It's very interesting. I've never seen it. And this is only a guess of an explanation. But in capuchin monkeys, I don't know if these were
I
capuchin.
think it might have been a capuchin, yeah.
So play has many strange features. One of them is that we test the boundaries of risk vulnerability. So for example, capuchin monkeys have this game where for some bizarre reason, they find it really fun to open your eyes and poke and put my finger inside your nostril and poke it. And for some bizarre reason, you think, yeah, that's okay.
That's a capuchin.
Yeah,
I think that's what it was.
and I was alerted to this because of a behavior that I saw in the wild in bonobos. That the first time I thought, this is incredible and hysterical at the same time, and an extremely bad idea, because they're playing, and often you see kind of rough and tumble play and chasing, and so all of that makes sense. And then, of course, we are all familiar with dogs when they, bite each other in the belly, and so they are on the boundaries of what is a good idea. And then I started seeing this game of a kind of ring-a-rosy, like one follows the other, but there's a female, no parallels here, that has the males by the balls. Basically, grab him by the balls, not by the, sorry. And in a way that he finds it fun. So she's like that, and they go like, ring around the rosy, and both find it very funny. I mean, they play face, and I couldn't believe it. Why? Because it's a very bad idea. This, in chimpanzees, they have genital mutilation. Of course,
They have what?
Genital mutilation. She can very easily, literally rip his testicles off, right? It's dangerous. Yeah. It's a part, what's the most vulnerable part of the male anatomy? The ego? No. Testicles, right? So in a kind of weird metaphor, sorry. Digression there. In a kind of weird metaphor, you're choosing to offer something that is your deepest vulnerability, and you're okay with that, and that is fun. It's fun for me to see how much I can push it, and it's fun for you to see how much I can offer it, right?
That sounds really human to me.
It's exactly, yeah. And so I started investigating this phenomena, and I discovered what the capuchins do. That is that they don't have the ball game like bonobos do, but they have this poking in the eye game, which again you go, why? So I don't know, but it sounds like she must have been, oh, it's safe. kind of poke in the eye. It's actually more interesting, your example, because there's something about teasing there. Did she know that he couldn't react to it? Is it like, now I can finally tease the bully or not? I don't know.
Yeah. It seemed very curious. It was very curious.
Yeah. But see, there's immense subversion in playfulness. No, and again, not to get any ideas about what next, but in terms of like ultimate freedoms, I really think we have to fight very hard not to lose the freedom to make jokes, to laugh, to poke. And today, I don't know what's going to happen, but we need to retain that, because the day that we lose that, then at the very basic, how are we going to come up with better ideas? I don't know. Play is very creative, and George Orwell has a wonderful essay, 1948. Funny, not vulgar. Where it says, every joke is a tiny revolution. Play is immensely subversive. If you just insist in clean fun, you don't get the creative, strong current.
It needs a little edge to it.
In his little edge to it. So yeah, just thinking about your monkeys poking the eye, I think, I don't know how we're going to translate that in future wisdom, but I think there's something there.
I just wanted to ask the question because I've been wanting to understand it for many, many years, and I never had a primatologist in my life. So you're the first one. Now, there's something really wonderful about playing a role. People often ask me when I do a role like Requiem for a Dream, which is very, very, very dark and hard and emotionally taxing and so forth, if at the end of the day I take it home with me, or do I have trouble coming out of it, or do I feel bummed out by it, or how do I feel? And I always feel elated. I just feel wonderful after a day of really hard work that I managed to pull off. Because that's a form of play.
Yes.
I mean, when you play a role, you step into it and then you completely embody it.
Yeah.
And then you step out and you get to put on your lipstick and go home.
Yeah.
Feels good.
But to hear that you experienced that after Requiem for a Dream is particularly poignant.
Yeah.
Wow.
I always felt happy. Now, if I didn't succeed in fulfilling a scene properly, I would not feel elated. But in that film, there was good circumstances, and Darren Aronofsky is a wonderful director, so he has a sense of when I've given what I've got, to give.
And what do you use as a yardstick for that sense?
Oh, I know.
That voice again.
No, it's like a musician when they're really jamming, and they feel the music. And, when you're hit home. Otherwise, it's just like, maybe we'll do another one. And you're still trying to find the... but when you get it, when you do it, it's a release. There's nothing held back. There's nothing you meant to do that you didn't do or wanted to do, but it wouldn't come out, or not sure what you're doing. It's an enormous human pleasure to be creative. I think everybody should be creative all the time, as best they can. Even if they have a dreary job, go home and color in a coloring book or something.
Play loud Rolling Stones, Sympathy for the Devil. I really recommend these days. It's very good. No, but it's true. Everybody also is creative. I think one of the dreadliest things we've done is to separate the creatives and the non-creatives. It is an awful thing to do that to humanity, because we all are creative. It's just a matter of allowing ourselves to access that space. That really is like, don't be creative, just be playful, engage with whatever makes your soul sing, and then the rest, I think, comes.
Yeah, yeah, it's like we've made certain jobs, creative jobs.
Yes.
You're an artist, you get paid for it, that's okay.
Yes.
But if you're not an artist or it's not a job that you get paid for, then you
Yes.
go do the job that you get paid for and, I don't know, cheer sports,
Yes.
you know, with your spare time
Yes.
instead of doing something
Yes.
that really pleases that urge in us,
Yes.
which we all have.
Is that, I don't know, I think there's a great mistake in thinking that the creatives is those who are being paid
Yeah.
by being creative. Why?
Yeah.
Because then we get to the conclusion that play in a way is the opposite of work. And it's not. The opposite of play is not work, it's depression. I really mean it in the sense that think about the nature of depression is basically disengagement. To me, it's like chronic disengagement. When you want to die, when the world no longer has colors, right? And play is the opposite. You're like a child, this is so fun. You want to throw yourself at the world. It's deep engagement. So at one end of the spectrum, you have like deep engagement. Like what you're saying, basically, at the end of each day of playing Requiem for a Dream role, in the way that you felt good, it's like you're deeply engaged. There's a joie de vivre that is intense. You are alive. Your whole animal sense is here now, and you're connected to the divine, if you want to call it that way.
Yeah, I'll call it that way.
Right? And the opposite of that is chronic disengagement.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, like this morning.
Yes.
Definitely disengagement, wasn't it?
Yeah.
What a day. I took my dog out to the park, 7 o'clock in the morning. All the strangers were crying together.
Oh.
Everybody was looking at just people you didn't know and going, what do we do?
I know.
You know, everybody started crying. And people were introducing themselves.
Yeah.
Tim said it reminded him of 9/11. I've heard other people say that. That's a kind of interesting thing that with a really big blow to the collective psyche, that the barriers fall down and we start relating in true ways,
Yes.
in deep ways to each other. So that's kind of a blessing, isn't it?
Yes.
This could be a blessing in disguise, big disguise.
Exactly. Orange disguise. Yes.
No, but really, you know, I've been talking to people who start enumerating all the terrible things that are going to happen. You know, they're going to reverse Roe v. Wade, and they're going to take back the, you know, all of the various things that have been passed over the last 20, 30, 40 years. And I'm thinking, why are we going there already? We don't really know what's going to happen. You know, why don't we wait and see? Because we've been down that road. We know where that's going. So if somebody starts going down that road, we can go, wait a minute, and get together somehow and take action. I don't know how yet. But, you know, I have a friend who's a shaman who had some cancer, and he took care of that, somehow it went away, and then he had Lyme's disease, and that went away. And I said, how do you do that? And he said, I just turn everything into joy. So today I wanted to say hello. Tell me how to do that.
Let's run a festival.
Okay, what's the festival?
It's kind of
A joy festival?
no, it's just a weird idea. What you described this morning, if I am an anthropologist from space, I would say that behavior you see when humans do festivals. So I've been also studying human behavior in festivals with my partner who's here. And we find this weird thing, we ask the question, why when people are in carnival atmosphere, I can approach you, you will approach me. We feel free to talk to anybody, and the barriers come down, and trust comes up. So we do little experiments with trust, and we think, what is it about this human niche where suddenly, again, it's like the collective comes together. So of course we have a lot of science and anthropology about it, but it remains a mystery to me. And in a way, there's also sad festivals. And maybe today, it was kind of a sad festival. And sad. So,
Sad
you know, we are crying.
I
we're
heard
not.
stud festival. I couldn't.
Yeah, sorry. And
Sorry.
yes, no. And of course, yes, maybe that's another possibility. It's a safe space. But I only know that humans, we've been doing this from before civilization arose. We have archaeological remains that show that we've been engaging in different communities coming together, exchanging food and drink and ideas, and forming bonds and really creating community through festivals before there was domestication of crops, before there were any cities.
Really?
Yeah, it's very important. It's very important because we always thought, first we become civilized. First we form cities. Then we have a little spare time, a spare cash, and we throw a party. And what we see is that it's the other way around. We are hunter-gatherers. We put immense effort in coming together, in how do these people came together, different languages. And because we came together, we form bonds. Because we form bonds, then we can trade. Trade emerges as a consequence, not as a precursor. So first comes the festival, then comes the city. So I don't know, I think we're in New York. There has to be something that we can do to take these principles, not necessarily take me literally, but there's something in the nature of forming community that, come on, we have been doing it for thousands of years, for 100,000, for I think probably for millions of years, if we think at the roots of what is bringing us human animals together. So
I guess that's really what the museum is doing, isn't it? By having these kind of gatherings, is creating community. So in the days coming toward us, we ought to be thinking about how we can be a serious community to deal with the changes that want to happen. I'm feeling, I took a look at it today as, I read this great sentence, and I'm sorry I don't remember who wrote it. It was one of those wonderful African-American writers like James Baldwin or Malcolm X, that said, I think it was James Baldwin, said, when people stop hating, they have to deal with their own pain. And so I'm looking today at all of those people that we call racist, or other names we have for them. And I realize that that's not the bottom line. The behavior gets down to racism, yes, but the racism is the hatred that is protecting them from dealing with their own pain. And so I started sending them love and light to help them with their pain. And say, how did we not hear their plea? How did we not know how much they were suffering? That they had to find something to look down on because they felt so unworthy. And what are we going to do about that? You know, when they talk about resent being politically correct, there's something there, because being politically correct is saying you can't say those words. You can't say how you feel. You can't say, but it doesn't deal with the real question of the feeling. And that's what didn't get addressed. And that's what created the problem that festered underneath political correctness, which now has gotten the lid blown off. So I think there's some real serious work to be done. Technology has put a whole bunch of our people out of work, and they're calling it immigrants. It ain't immigrants, it's technology, and they need to be retrained so they can feel okay about themselves and make a living. Nobody's addressing that. We have to start addressing that. Excuse me, I just got off on my own thing there, but
I think
yeah.
Virginia Woolf said, oh, you must have watched The Hours.
The what?
The Hours, the film The Hours.
No.
There's a scene, it's just to say that I love what you just done.
Okay.
Because it's to validate that, and then let's take questions. There's a scene where she was such a, and she was a joyful person. Huh? Of course, we know of her that she committed suicide and her bipolar, and like, oh my God, Virginia. Virginia was funny and joyful and wonderful. And yeah, and there's that Thames River incident too. But, and there's the point where she's taken out, into the realm of political correctness, so to say. She's taken to live in Richmond, which was then, of course, to live in the country, to be safe from life, from the city, from Bloomsbury, to protect her from, ups and downs and what life could bring to her. And she's going mad of boredom and lack of life. And she's dying inside. And at some point, she runs to the train station and wants to go back to London, to Bloomsbury, to a centre. And Leonard, the husband, who's lovely and is just trying to take care of her, goes, Virginia, no, darling, we need to go back to our country home. You know what the doctor said. And, I must keep you from life influencing you, basically. And she's like, oh, Leonard, you don't understand. You can't find peace by avoiding life.
Oh, yeah.
You can't find peace by avoiding life. You must look life at the eye.
Yeah.
So I think it's not a rant. I think it's like, shit, what happened today? You must look life at the eye.
And now that's what we got to deal with.
Yes, so let's take a question from the audience on that note.